Hello. In the last video I showed this vintage Braun flashgun. I said it's all generally for the age in good condition. It all works perfectly still, except the shoulder strap is very dried out. It's a leather strap, it's dried out. I mean, it's not been used in 40 years at least. It feels like cardboard. It's kind of set in shapes, and I think if I tried to flex it about or use it, it would crack or just break. But it can or should be able to be restored still, and that's what this one's about. It's about restoring or looking after leather so it doesn't get into this type of state. I mean, this is like this because it's not been unused and just been in a box for decades. But there's no reason for that if it's something you use or something you want to use. Let me just move the flashgun out of the way. Right. Leather is literally skin, and to keep it in good condition, it needs treating in much the same way as your skin does. With the big difference that it's no longer on a living animal that's producing nutrients for it. There's a number of things you can use, most of which are good if they're designed properly for leather. If you use them and take care of leather, then I mean these aren't these. This is an old belt which I've looked after for a very long time. I just occasionally treat it with Neatsfoot Oil, which is one of the best care products for heavy duty leather like this. You can see it's extremely supple. It actually feels like a strip of rubber almost, but there's no stretch to it, or very little. You can see it does flex, but no cracking, no damage at all. It's decades old, and it'll probably last longer than me. That's another one. This one has some kind of glossy finish on it. Some things do have a kind of sprayed on paint almost, and that's very broken, the surface. But the material itself is as good as new, effectively, strength-wise, flexibility, no problems at all. And that's how you can keep things if you use the right materials. And these are some examples of what you can use. This is the one I mentioned, Neatsfoot Oil. That's what I'm going to use on this to start with. It's completely safe because it's made for skin. It might have some slight preservatives in, but nothing that's harmful. It actually says on the bottle you can use it as a massage oil. And not something I want to try myself, but it's a possibility. For outdoor clothes like boots and things, this is probably one of the best things you can get. It's a mixture. Dubbin is a mixture of kind of oils, fats, and waxes, and it's a kind of sticky paste. It looks like lard, or it's a cross between lard and white candle wax. It's quite thick, but if you spread that onto, say, a pair of outdoor boots, you'll find that it soaks in and gives it a kind of dull sheen. And then you just polish any excess off with a cloth. And I believe this stuff that's now come back into fashion for some types of shoes and boots is virtually the same thing. The difference is this is a tiny pot at the top of it. It's got a tint to it, but it's a tiny pot, and that for 100 grams costs the same or more than that big tub with 500 grams in it. And having tried that, because I was given a couple of pots with some shoes I bought, I would say it's no advantage over Dubbin. if anything, this stuff's probably better. Another one for leather that you want, like furniture, for example, or car seats that are real leather, it's Lexol. This is an emulsion. It looks like a hand lotion type of thing, but it is, you can buy it in bulk, different size bottles or even big cans. You just wipe it on, or any of these you can use your hands to put them on. I put this on by hand. Just get some on your fingers and rub it into the surface of the books or whatever. Or you can use a stiff brush or a cloth, because they're all harmless to skin. Because they're for skin. Not for that type of skin. So I'll just give a quick go on this. Now, I think actually for this, because this is so small, I think if I try and do this by hand, I'm just going to spill the stuff everywhere. So I've got a little brush to do that. So I'll just pause for a second and get the brush. Okay, I'm just going to use the lid cap for the container to put a bit into. So I'll get it with the brush. There's a slightly strange odour to it, but that does fade over a day or two. And you see, if I put this on here, it's like putting it on a sponge. It just soaks in itself because it's so dry. It's vanishing because the leather's totally dried out and it needs feeding. And this will disperse through the leather and soften the fibres and make them supple again so it doesn't crack. Now, there is one other classic thing for supposedly caring for leather, and that's the stuff called saddle soap, which is literally a kind of soap compound that will take out grease and oils. That is not a good idea, because it's like, if you imagine washing your hands with a strong detergent or soap without ever allowing the oils to recover through your body, and obviously leather can't, it's got no natural source like your body. It makes it brittle. It dries it out. It's a caustic material that attacks the fibres, and it's not good for it. It gives an immediate effect on appearance, but long term, it's not a good idea. You stick to an oil-based or an oil emulsion like Lexol or one of the brand name leather conditioners, and you'll get much better results. So this type of thing is Neatsfoot oil. There's another one called Mars oil, which I don't know if you can get as well, but that's a very similar product. But Neatsfoot oil is generally available. It's not expensive. I think all these things I'm showing you cost about £5 for a bottle or can or whatever. The little shoe polish one was the only really expensive one. The others are basically all about £5 for 500 ml or a bit less, 500 grams. Now the rubber shoulder pad has disintegrated completely on this. I'll just move it out of the way so I can get to the material underneath. So depending on what type of thing you're working on, anything like straps, equipment straps. There was a handle on the record-on machine I was working on. It's a leather strap case handle, typical old-fashioned case handle with metal ends. But unfortunately, that had cracked up badly, and it was beyond recovery. It had been left too long, and it dried out and started cracking badly, and no strength left. So I did have to replace that. But for something like this, you can see how the stuff in the pot's going down, the little lid there, it is soaking up a vast amount of this oil. And after that's fully soaked in, it should be returned to being fully flexible and full strength again. So I'm getting sidetracked. Trying to do this and talk about other things at the same time. I never bother with any kind of outline plan or script. Anyway, anything like this, anything that's for handling and strength, then the oil is the ideal thing, Neatsfoot oil. For boots, also stuff like leather footballs, things that's going to be exposed to weather and dirt, then Dubbin is the best choice. Though you could use this, it's just it's not got quite as much build-up as the wax and grease-based ones. And then for stuff that that's more, it doesn't quite need so drastic waterproofing and protection, but still needs to last. Lexol, that's ideal for like leather jackets, where you don't want the oily, greasy finish even for a day, because that has an emulsion base, and the oil seems to soak in the oils, and I think it's got other stuff in. I don't know exactly what. But that seems to soak in, and after it's been left overnight, all you get is kind of a slight white residue that just polishes off if there's any excess. And it's better to have some excess, so you know that it's fully saturated and not needing feeding and moisturising still, than it is to not put enough on and the stuff dry out quicker and start cracking or suffering damage. I mean, I have used this on a leather jacket I got. I got one about 10 years ago. Some friends got me for my birthday. And the very first thing I did was give it a coat of Neatsfoot oil. Just used a piece of cloth to limit how much I put on, but so it got some soaked into it to feed the leather, because the leather seemed very, very, very dry. I don't know what type of treatment they use when stuff like that's being manufactured, but it didn't seem as well finished, if you like, in terms of flexibility as it could have been. It seemed like a dry surface. So I gave it a light coat of this, left it for a couple of days, and then gave it a really good soaking with Lexol, a couple of coats. And the finish on it now is fantastic. And I'll show you in a minute once I've finished going back over this. As you can see, that's the second capful, and this little tiny piece of leather, that's the second capful of oil it's now had soaked into it. And there's a few drops of spilled there, but most of it's got in. There's a little bit of my hand. So I have to wash up before I touch something else, especially the camera. But you see this, all the stuff I put on earlier is completely dried out. It's just soaking it up like a sponge. After this has been left overnight, probably, so for it to disperse, it should be a lot more flexible. Just go and make sure I've got all the edges. So it's got as much area saturated with stuff as it has to soak in. I do want to just to do the top. I mean, because the surface is already broken, it's not got this painted on seal intact. I don't know if it's an actual seal, but I think it's something that might restrict absorption. Doesn't hurt to go over it. I mean, it won't matter anyway, just wipe it off again if there's any excess. Don't need a lot, but it's still soaking it up. Now this side's not absorbing it quite the same because it has got the finish on it still, the traces of it, where it's not crackled. It's staying wetter, but also it's going to be soaking through from the other side. In fact, yeah, I think you're starting to just in some places. I thought I saw there, just in the light, probably camera didn't pick it up. Just starting to look like a different bit more sheen on this side, even though in places I'd not touched. I don't remember doing. I must have been talking. Anyway, yeah, okay. So that's now had 2 coats on the back full length. You see, it's still not saturated. Just run through my fingers have got so much on already. Oh, that plastic's just disintegrated. Oh well, I mean that's got to go anyway. I think that was some kind of rubber, but it's perished and gone brittle. So it can't stay on there anyway. Oops. There's a big chunk missing out of the middle of it because it's supposed to be a long shoulder strap, probably 6 inches long or something, a shoulder pad. Right, that's it. That is definitely changing texture already as it soaks through, but it will take a while for all the individual fibres inside to soak up. But that feels a lot better already. It's lost some of the stiffness it had before. It's still not totally flexible. It's a limited. You see it's straining. If that was kinked, it would probably crack still. But it's better than it was. And after this is soaked through, hopefully, as I say, in a day or so, a few hours, it should be fully flexible. I'll probably put a coat of Lexol on it as well afterwards. It doesn't hurt and it may do more good. Slightly different substances and nutrients and things. But I'll hang this up on something out the way and wash my hands because they're covered in this stuff before I just show you the jacket I was talking about. Right, back again. Just clear this stuff up. Just wash my hands, I don't want to get covered in that again. Run down the bottle, but it'll be okay for now. Right. Okay, the jacket. Well, this was quite an expensive one. And as I say, I did this with a moderate amount of Neatsfoot oil and then a very heavy or double coat dose of Lexol before I started wearing it even. And you can see this is very, very soft and supple still. There's no trace of cracking anywhere. Could be 1 or 2 scratches on it because it has got a lot of use, but it's not drying out or cracking even on the seams and things. And it's still in very good condition. The other thing is the oil or Dubbin type ones act as water repellents, whereas Lexol, being a water-based emulsion, doesn't act as a water repellent so much. That's why I put the Neatsfoot on first to help with waterproofing. Now I'll just show you the effect of the Lexol. Just I don't know where I put it on. So it's still a bit stuck in it. So it looks just like hand lotion type stuff, and it's very similar because it is, again, it's a skin treatment. Yeah. And then say you just keep that's all you need to do to use the stuff. You put a bit on and then spread it in so it soaks in, and you can see that's soaked in almost straight away. This is about ready for doing again. So we'll go over the whole thing. But as you can see, it doesn't really change the colour or anything. It might be slightly shinier at the moment. Doesn't really change the feel. Well, yeah, it does it is a bit dry in where it's not been done, and that feels fractionally. I don't know how you describe it really. It feels more like skin rather than being a dry surface, as it's been kind of rejuvenated. But that's the idea. Those are the example substances you can use. Just put them back to stop. They are the best things you can use for appropriate conditions and appropriate materials. I mean, you won't do any actual harm using the wrong type of one on any particular material, but different types of leather, shoes, clothes, but equipment. The only difference is what they feel like afterwards. I mean, Dubbin tends to leave an oily surface or greasy surface until you polish it off well, or until it wears up or soaks in and wears off. Whereas Lexol just dries on the surface when the carrier liquid, I think it's basically water-based emulsion, when that evaporates, and that in the meantime has carried the active oils and waxes or whatever it's got in it into the material, so it doesn't leave a particularly greasy surface. As I say, it does feel different, but it feels like washed skin. And then Neatsfoot oil is somewhere between. That does soak in fully over time, but it takes longer for the surface to lose the oiliness. But it soaks in better than Dubbin, or faster than Dubbin. So they're all good, and it's what you use is down to you, what your preference is. The Lexol is obviously a single brand name, but both Dubbin and Neatsfoot oil are available under many different brands. These happen to be the same ones, but that's pure coincidence. I didn't even notice it just now. Anyway, I hope that's of interest, and it'll help you stop a few things degrading, or help you restore some, whatever, clothing, handles with straps, equipment, boots, anything you like, and keep them in good order for a bit longer, because there's no reason they shouldn't last for decades, far longer than most synthetic type equivalents. Okay, this is about probably 20 hours or so since I did this with the Neatsfoot oil, and as you can see now, rather than it being like a piece of stiff cardboard, it's about as flexible as a piece of proverbial damp string. It's fairly well soaked through. I've had to wipe it off a bit just to get the excess off, because there was a little bit of excess on it. Hopefully it will keep absorbing it into the fibres for a while yet. But it's definitely now functionally restored. It's got its flexibility back, and it's totally usable. Let it just dry out a bit, or wipe it if necessary. I mean, I did deliberately use excess amounts on this because it was in such a poor state, and I wanted to make sure I got enough on it. If it was just some kind of maintenance on something that was in use, I'd put a single light coat on, and then see how it went on that, and put another coat on a few days later, if needed. Or as I say, alternate it with Lexol, depending what type of material it was, what it was in use for. The black looks a lot better as well than it did, but it's not perfect. You can see there's some damage and some brown through it. But again, it's got this kind of glaze effect in some places. I think it's some kind of coating rather than just purely the leather itself. Now, to restore that, or improve its appearance, I wouldn't exactly restore it, because it's going to put this glaze on it. I don't know what on earth that is. But to improve the patchiness, you could either use just normal shoe polish, which obviously has colouring in it, or a proper leather dye, which is probably what I'll use, which is an alcohol-based one. It soaks in, and that's similar to the type of stuff that's probably used for the colouring itself originally. Just a word on this compared to the oils and Dubbin and things. This is a very hard wax with an evaporating solvent in it. Or, generic shoe polishes, not just this make. All the generic shiny shoe polishes. The more I consider them more in the lines of furniture polish, where you put it on, the solvent evaporates and it hardens up, and it leaves a kind of glaze on the surface. And there's very little actually penetrates the material. So it forms a protective glaze to some extent, but anything that's flexing rather than rigid, it will crack and allow things through, and it doesn't particularly feed the underlying material. So although it's okay for cosmetic finish, if you want to actually preserve the leather itself, then do use one of the others, the Neatsfoot Oil, Dubbin, Lexol, whatever is appropriate. And then if you want, clean it off again, just polish it up dry and add a coat of this over the top, or this type of material over the top, if you want a hard shine on it rather than just a kind of soft shine that the oil or wax-based ones give, soft wax-based ones give. You can see that's got quite a nice appearance to it as it is, considering the age. It's got a bit of a shine to it. And that's without polishing, that's just the result of the oil on the surface. Anyway, that's the end of that one. You can see the results, and I hope it's of useful. If you've got any old equipment or old belts, boots, clothing, anything that could do with some renovation. Okay, thanks for watching.